The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the small gathering at Mesa Verde Cemetery. Heat waves shimmered above the parched ground as about 40 people stood in a semicircle around the freshly dug grave. Most wore black despite the scorching temperature, fanning themselves with the memorial programs as they listened to the pastor's words about a life well lived. Anna wiped sweat from her forehead and shifted her weight from one foot to the other. Her grandfather's funeral wasn't how she had pictured spending her week back home, but life rarely followed the plans we made for it. She glanced at her mother, who stood stiffly beside her, eyes red-rimmed but dry. They hadn't seen much of each other in the 5 years since Anna had left for university, and even now, united in grief, there was an awkward distance between them. Santiago Rivera was a man who understood the desert and its creatures better than anyone I've ever known, the pastor was saying, his voice carrying across the silent gathering. He respected this harsh land and learned its secrets over his 87 years. Anna's thoughts drifted to childhood memories of her grandfather, his weathered hands showing her how to identify animal tracks, his patient voice explaining which desert plants could heal and which could harm. While other kids in town grew up fearing the creatures that skittered through the sand, Anna had learned from Santiago that understanding was always better than fear. The modest wooden casket sat before them, adorned with a simple arrangement of local wildflowers. No fancy ornaments or expensive displays. Exactly as her grandfather would have wanted it. Santiago had never cared much for possessions or appearances. The desert strips away everything unnecessary, he used to tell her. Out here, you learn what truly matters. Anna's cousin Diego stepped forward to share a memory, his voice cracking slightly as he described how Santiago had taught him to find water in seemingly barren landscape. Other relatives followed with their own stories, some funny, some profound. Anna knew she should probably say something too, but the right words wouldn't come. How could she compress a lifetime of wisdom into a few sentences for people who had never really understood her grandfather the way she had? The small town of Mesa Verde had always viewed Santiago with a mixture of respect and wariness. They came to him when they needed help with the scorpions that inevitably found their way into local homes, amazed at how he could scoop up the dangerous creatures with his bare hands. The scorpion whisperer, they called him, sometimes with affection, sometimes with uneasy jokes about witchcraft or old Indian magic. Anna had once asked him why scorpions never stung him. Instead of giving a straight answer, he'd told her that respect earned respect, even from creatures most people feared. They sense intention, he'd explained, move with confidence but without threat, and they have no reason to harm you. As a child, Anna had accepted this as simple truth. As an adult with a half-completed biology degree, she wondered about pheromones, or subtle body language her grandfather had mastered without scientific terminology. The pastor was inviting everyone to bow their heads for a final prayer when a murmur rippled through the gathering. Anna, lost in memories, didn't immediately notice until her mother's fingers dug painfully into her arm. "Dios mío," her mother whispered, voice tight with fear. "Look." Anna followed her gaze to the casket and felt her breath catch. Perched directly on top of the polished wood was a scorpion, but not just any scorpion. This one was massive, at least 5 inches long, with a glossy black exoskeleton that seemed to absorb the sunlight rather than reflect it. Its claws were held open in a display posture, tail arched high over its back. People began backing away instinctively. Someone gasped. A child started crying. The funeral director, a thin man named Hector who had always been terrified of Santiago's pets, looked like he might faint. "That's an emperor's shadow," whispered an elderly woman nearby. "I thought they were just stories." Anna had heard the name before. Her grandfather had spoken of this rare species, supposedly the largest and most venomous scorpion in the region, but so elusive that many believed it was just a desert legend. Santiago claimed to have encountered only 3 in his entire lifetime. "Somebody do something," hissed Anna's Aunt Lucia, clutching her rosary beads. "This is a sign of evil at a funeral." The pastor, to his credit, maintained his composure. Now, he said, though his voice had risen an octave. "Let's stay calm. Perhaps someone could find a stick to. Don't hurt it." Anna said, surprising herself with how steady her voice sounded. All eyes turned to her. Her mother's grip tightened. Anna, don't you dare. But Anna was already moving forward, drawn by something she couldn't quite explain. The scorpion remained motionless on the casket, its posture now seeming more sentinel than threatening. As she approached, she remembered her grandfather's lessons about scorpions. They weren't aggressive without reason. They didn't seek out confrontation. Most stings happened because of fear, on both sides. Anna, her mother called out sharply. Get back here this instant. The funeral gathering had now split into two distinct groups, those who had retreated to a safe distance, crossing themselves or holding protective amulets, and a smaller group watching with fascination. Her cousin Diego took a half-step forward as if to stop her, then froze in place. Anna stood before the casket now, eye level with the black scorpion. Up close it was even more impressive. Its exoskeleton had an almost metallic sheen, and its eyes seemed to hold an intelligence that shouldn't be possible in an arachnid. For a long moment they regarded each other in silence. Hello there, Anna whispered, too quietly for anyone else to hear. Did you come to say goodbye to him too? The scorpion's claws lowered slightly. Was that her imagination, or had it responded to her voice? Anna slowly, deliberately extended her hand, palm up, and placed it on the edge of the casket. Her mother made a strangled sound of horror somewhere behind her. Anna ignored it, keeping her breathing even, her movements smooth and unthreatening. It's okay, she murmured. I won't hurt you. What happened next caused several people to cry out in shock. The scorpion, the deadly feared emperor's shadow that even hardened desert dwellers spoke of with dread, walked calmly onto Anna's outstretched hand. She felt its weight, surprisingly substantial, and the slight prickling sensation of its 8 legs moving across her skin. Its tail remained raised but relaxed, stinger pointed away from her. Anna slowly lifted her hand, bringing the scorpion to eye level. That's impossible, someone whispered behind her. Those things are killers. Anna turned carefully to face the gathering, the scorpion perched contentedly on her palm. Sunlight caught its black shell, revealing subtle blue-purple undertones. Her mother had gone pale, clutching the arm of Anna's uncle for support. My grandfather always said they understand more than we think, Anna explained, her voice carrying in the stunned silence. They don't want trouble. They just want respect. Diego was the first to step forward, wonder replacing fear on his face. It's not attacking you, he said unnecessarily, just like how Abuelo used to handle them. Anna nodded, a lump forming in her throat. Was it coincidence that this legendary creature had appeared at Santiago's funeral? That it had allowed her to hold it, just as her grandfather had described in his stories? She wasn't sure what to believe, but standing there with the feared scorpion resting peacefully in her hand, she felt closer to her grandfather than she had since his death. The pastor cleared his throat. Perhaps, he suggested carefully, we should continue with the service? Anna nodded and returned to her place beside her mother, who was now staring at her with a mixture of terror and bewilderment. The scorpion remained on Anna's hand throughout the remainder of the funeral, its presence gradually shifting from shocking to somehow appropriate. After all, no one had understood these creatures better than Santiago Rivera. As the service concluded and people began to disperse, many casting curious glances back at Anna and her unusual companion, she noticed something she hadn't seen before. Attached to one of the scorpion's legs was what appeared to be a tiny scrap of paper, secured with a thread so fine it was almost invisible. Curious, she carefully removed it, while ensuring the scorpion remained comfortable. Unfolding the weathered paper with her free hand, Anna recognized her grandfather's distinctive handwriting immediately. The note contained only geographic coordinates and 7 words. For Anna, when the Emperor's shadow comes. She felt a shiver. That had nothing to do with the desert heat. Her grandfather had known. Somehow he had known this would happen. And whatever waited at those coordinates, he had intended it specifically for her. The scorpion shifted slightly on her hand, almost, seeming to watch her reaction to the note. Anna looked into its gleaming eyes and felt a certainty she couldn't explain. "Looks like we have somewhere to go," she whispered to her unusual new companion. Anna sat on the edge of her childhood bed, staring at the small scrap of paper in her hands. The coordinates were written in her grandfather's shaky handwriting. Age had taken its toll on his once steady hand, but he'd made sure these numbers were clear. She'd already plugged them into a map app on her phone. The location was about 20 miles outside town, deep in the desert where tourists never ventured, and locals rarely had reason to go. The black scorpion that had caused such a commotion at the funeral now rested in a large glass terrarium on her dresser. An old one her grandfather had kept in the shed behind the house. Anna had lined it with sand and added a few rocks and a piece of driftwood to create hiding spots, though the scorpion seemed content to sit in plain view, watching her with what she could almost swear was curiosity. "What am I supposed to do with you?" she asked aloud. The scorpion's pincers moved, slightly as if in response. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Her mother entered without waiting for an answer, carrying a mug of tea. She set it down on the nightstand, her eyes darting nervously to the terrarium. "I don't want that thing in my house," she said for the third time since they'd returned from the funeral. Anna sighed. "It's not dangerous, Mom. Not if you don't threaten it." "That's what your grandfather always said, and look where his strange ideas got him." Her mother crossed her arms. 87 years old, still wandering the desert, talking to scorpions instead of people. And then just gone. Found dead next to his truck with no explanation. The doctor said it was his heart. Anna reminded her gently. His heart was fine at his checkup 3 months ago. Her mother's voice had an edge of bitterness. Santiago always had secrets, always disappearing for days. Even as his wife, your grandmother, never knew everything about that man. Anna studied, her mother's face noticing the lines of worry that hadn't been there 5 years ago. There had always been tension between her mother and grandfather, two stubborn people with very different views on life. Her mother had chosen the practical path, working as a nurse at the county hospital, raising Anna alone after her father left. Santiago, meanwhile, had lived by his own rules, making just enough money as the town's unofficial pest controller and desert guide to survive, but spending most of his time pursuing his own mysterious interests out among the cacti and sand dunes. "Me, going to check out these coordinates tomorrow," Anna said, changing the subject. Her mother's eyes narrowed. "What coordinates?" Anna held up the small piece of paper. "The scorpion had this attached to its leg. It's from Grandpa." "That's ridiculous. How would he?" Her mother stopped mid-sentence, shaking her head. "No. Whatever game Santiago was playing, it ends now. He's gone, Anna. Come back to reality. You didn't see how this scorpion behaved at the funeral. It wasn't normal. Nothing about today was normal." Her mother's voice rose. "Normal people don't have poisonous creatures show up at their funerals. Normal people don't have granddaughters who pick up deadly scorpions like they're kittens." Anna remained quiet, knowing from experience that arguing would only make things worse. After a moment, her mother's shoulders slumped. 2 days, she said, her tone softening slightly. "You have 2 more days before your flight back to university. Don't waste them chasing Santiago's ghost." After her mother left, Anna turned, back to the terrarium. The scorpion had moved closer to the glass, its front claws pressed against the surface as if trying to reach her. "What did he want me to find?" she whispered. That night, Anna dreamed of her grandfather. They were walking together through the desert at sunset, the sky painted in brilliant oranges and purples. Santiago pointed to tracks in the sand, teaching her as he had when she was small. "The desert keeps no secrets from those who know how to read it," he said, his voice exactly as she remembered. "Every creature leaves a trail. Every plant tells a story." "I miss you," Anna told him in the dream. He smiled, the wrinkles around his eyes deepening. "I'm not gone, little one, just transformed like the cicada shedding its shell. She woke before dawn, the dream still vivid in her mind. Without overthinking it, she packed a backpack with water bottles, sunscreen, a first aid kit, and some granola bars. She dressed in light hiking clothes and sturdy boots, then scribbled a note for her mother. Gone to check Grandpa's coordinates. Back by evening. Phone charged. Don't worry. The black scorpion was awake, moving restlessly around its terrarium. On impulse, Anna opened the lid. The scorpion immediately climbed onto her outstretched hand. Want to come along? She asked softly. It's your message too, after all. She fashioned a makeshift carrier from a small wooden box with air holes, lined with sand. The scorpion seemed content enough when placed inside, though Anna couldn't shake the feeling it understood exactly what was happening. The town was still sleeping as she drove her rented car through the quiet streets. Her grandfather's old pickup truck sat in the driveway of his small house, now part of her inheritance, though she hadn't been able to bring herself to go through his things yet. That task would have to wait for another visit. As she left the outskirts of Mesa Verde behind, the rising sun painted the desert landscape in soft gold light. Saguaro cacti cast long shadows across the sand, and a roadrunner darted across the empty highway ahead of her. Anna rolled down the windows, letting the already warming air rush in. The familiar smell of the desert, dry, sharp, alive in its own way, brought back a flood of memories. After 40 minutes of driving, including the last 10 on an increasingly rough dirt road, the GPS indicated she was getting close. She parked where the road became impassable and checked the wooden box. The scorpion was still there, apparently unbothered by the journey. Almost there, she told it, feeling only slightly foolish for talking to an arachnid. The hike from the car was challenging, but not impossible. Anna kept a careful eye on her phone's navigation, watching as the distance to the mysterious coordinates ticked down. The desert was waking up around her, lizards sunning themselves on rocks, hawks circling overhead, the occasional scurrying of unseen creatures in the brush. When she was within 100 yards of the location, Anna noticed something odd. A formation of rocks ahead didn't look natural. They were too evenly spaced, too deliberately arranged. As she got closer, she realized they formed a rough circle about 20 feet in diameter. In the center stood a single flat stone, positioned like an altar. What is this place? She murmured, approaching cautiously. The coordinates led directly to the center of the circle. Anna stood before the flat stone, feeling a strange mixture of disappointment and anticipation. There was nothing here, no message, no hidden treasure, nothing but rocks and sand. She set down her backpack and the wooden box, opening the latter to check on the scorpion. To her surprise, the creature immediately scrambled out and headed straight for the central stone. It climbed up the side and positioned itself in the middle, claws raised as if in greeting. "What are you doing?" Anna asked, watching in fascination. The scorpion began moving in a circle, its tail sweeping back and forth across the surface of the stone. Anna moved closer, noticing for the first time that there were faint markings on the rock, old carvings, weathered by time, but still visible, if you knew to look for them. They depicted a circle of smaller figures surrounding a larger one with a distinctive curved tail. "Scorpions?" Anna whispered, tracing the carvings with her fingertip. "This is some kind of scorpion shrine?" As if responding to her voice, the black scorpion stopped its circling and moved to the edge of the stone nearest to Anna. It raised its front claws, then brought them down sharply against the rock surface. Once, twice, 3 times. A deliberate pattern. Anna frowned, watching closely as the scorpion repeated the sequence. "You're trying to tell me something." She examined the flat stone more carefully, running her hands along the edges. On the side where the scorpion now waited, she felt a slight depression, a handhold. Heart beating faster, Anna gripped the edge and pulled. The stone moved slightly, revealing darkness beneath. "It's a cover," she realized, excitement building. With a grunt of effort, she slid the heavy stone aside. Beneath was a small cavity lined with clay to protect it from the elements. Inside lay a metal box, old but well preserved, with her grandfather's initials engraved on the lid. As our Anna lifted it out carefully, her hands trembling slightly, it was locked, but a small key hung from a leather cord wrapped around the box. The scorpion watched from the edge of the stone as she unwound the cord and fitted the key into the lock. Inside the box was a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age. On top of it lay an envelope with Anna's name written in her grandfather's handwriting. She opened it with care, unfolding the letter inside. "My dearest Anna," it began, "if you are reading this, then the Emperor's shadow has found you, just as one found me 50 years ago. There are things about our family you must know, secrets I've kept too long. The journal will explain everything, but first you should understand that what most people call magic is simply knowledge they don't yet possess. The bond between our family and these creatures goes back centuries. They chose us, not the other way around." Anna looked up from the letter to find the black scorpion watching her intently. For the first time, she noticed a small mark on its back, a pattern of lighter spots that resembled a crescent moon. "This is just the beginning," her grandfather's letter continued. "Trust the shadow. It will guide you as it guided me. What you discover next will change everything you thought you knew about yourself and our world." The scorpion moved closer, its claws gently touching Anna's hand that held the letter. A strange sensation passed through her, not threatening, but powerful. A connection, a promise. Whatever journey her grandfather had set her on, Anna knew in that moment that her life would never be the same. Anna sat cross-legged on the desert floor, her grandfather's journal open in her lap. The black scorpion rested nearby on a flat rock, seemingly content to wait as she read. The sun had climbed higher in the sky, and Anna had moved to the shade of a large boulder to escape the growing heat. The journal's first pages contained detailed observations of desert wildlife, written in her grandfather's neat script. Santiago had recorded temperatures, plant blooming cycles, and animal migration patterns with scientific precision. But about 30 pages in, the tone of the entries changed. "First contact with the Emperor's shadow today," read an entry from June 1975. "Unlike any scorpion I've encountered. Approached me without fear near the ancient circle. When I extended my hand, it climbed onto my palm without hesitation. No aggressive posture. Felt a strange connection, almost like communication without words." Anna glanced at her scorpion companion. It had moved closer, and now seemed to be watching the journal, as if it could understand what she was reading. "I know how that feels," she murmured. She continued reading, flipping through pages of increasingly extraordinary accounts. Santiago described how the scorpion had led him to hidden water sources during a dangerous hike, warned him of an approaching dust storm, and even guided him to a cave containing pottery fragments from an ancient civilization. But the most startling entries concerned what Santiago called the awakening. "The dreams have started," he wrote, "just as my grandmother said they would. Images of people I've never met, places I've never been. When I wake, the shadow is always there, watching. Grandmother Rosa told me stories of our family's gift, but I never truly believed until now. The blood connection goes back centuries," she said. "Not everyone in the family has it, only those chosen by the shadows." Anna's pulse quickened. She remembered her dream from the night before, walking with her grandfather in the desert. Had that been more than just a dream? Further entries described Santiago's growing ability to sense things he shouldn't have been able to know, impending weather changes, animals hiding nearby, even the emotions of people around him. He attributed these abilities to his connection with the Emperor's shadow. "The melding has deepened," read an entry from the 1980s. "When the shadow is with me, I can see with more than my eyes, feel with more than my skin. The old ones called it desert magic, but it's something else. Something older than words. Something in our blood." Anna closed the journal, her mind racing. She looked at the scorpion, which had now moved onto the edge of the journal cover. "Is that why you came? To me? Because I have the same gift?" The scorpion's front claws moved in what almost seemed like a gesture of affirmation. Anna laughed nervously. "I'm talking to a scorpion, Mom would have me committed. Yet she couldn't deny the strange connection she felt with the creature. Since the funeral, she'd experienced odd moments of heightened awareness, noticing the subtle movements of air currents, sensing the locations of small animals hiding in the brush around her, even anticipating her mother's moods before entering a room. She returned to the journal, skipping ahead to the more recent entries. In his last years, Santiago had become obsessed with documenting everything he knew about the Emperor's shadows, their habitats, behaviors, and most importantly, the connection they formed with certain members of his family. The ability passes down, but not to all, he wrote. My Lena never showed the signs, too practical, too rooted in the visible world. But Anna, I've watched her since she was small. The way she moves in the desert, the way animals respond to her. She has the gift, stronger than mine perhaps. When the time comes, the shadow will find her. Anna's eyes filled with tears. Her grandfather had known all along. He'd seen something in her that she hadn't recognized in herself. The final entry was dated just 3 days before Santiago's death. Preparations complete. The shadow understands its task. The circle has been prepared. When I am gone, Anna will find her way. The legacy continues. She closed the journal and looked at the scorpion with new understanding. He sent you to find me. The scorpion moved closer, its claws gently touching her hand. In that moment of contact, Anna felt a strange sensation, like a door opening, in her mind. Suddenly she was seeing images that weren't coming through her eyes, the desert from inches above the ground moving quickly over sand. A small dark cave beneath twisted roots, Santiago's weathered face smiling down, and finally a sequence of landmarks leading away from the stone circle, deeper into the desert. Anna gasped and pulled her hand away. The vision vanished instantly. What was that? She whispered, her heart pounding. The scorpion remained still, waiting. After a moment's hesitation, Anna cautiously extended her hand again. The scorpion climbed onto her palm and the connection re-established, softer this time, less overwhelming. She saw the same sequence of landmarks, but now she understood they were directions. The scorpion was showing her where to go next. There's more, isn't there? Something else my grandfather left for me. She stood up, tucking the journal into her backpack. The scorpion moved to her shoulder, settling there as if it belonged. The strange sensation remained. Not exactly vision, not exactly thought, but something in between. Anna could sense a distant location, a pull toward something important. Okay, she said, taking a deep breath. Show me the way. What followed was unlike any hike Anna had ever experienced. With the scorpion guiding her, she moved through the desert landscape with newfound confidence. She found herself noticing details she would have missed before. The slight discoloration of sand indicating water far below the surface, the subtle paths used by desert creatures, the shifting patterns of sunlight that pointed toward easier routes through the rocky terrain. After nearly an hour of walking, they reached a steep ridge overlooking a hidden valley. Anna paused to drink from her water bottle and check her phone. No service as expected this far from town, and the battery was running low. She'd need to start back soon or risk being caught in the desert after dark. Is it much farther? She asked the scorpion. In response, she felt a gentle nudge in her mind, directing her attention to a cluster of large boulders at the valley's edge, maybe half a mile ahead. That was their destination. The descent into the valley was tricky, with loose rocks and steep drops, but Anna navigated it with surprising ease. She found herself instinctively knowing which handholds would support her weight, which paths would lead safely downward. It was as if her body was responding to information she wasn't consciously processing. When she finally reached the boulder cluster, she was breathing hard from exertion, but filled with a sense of accomplishment. The rocks formed a natural shelter, creating shade and a significantly cooler microclimate. At the center of the formation was a narrow opening, barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through. The scorpion moved down from her shoulder to her hand, then gestured toward the opening with its claws. In there? Anna asked, peering dubiously into the darkness. I don't have a flashlight. She felt rather than saw the scorpion's response, a gentle reassurance that light wouldn't be necessary. Taking a deep breath, Anna removed her backpack and pushed it ahead of her into the opening, then began to squeeze through the narrow gap. The passage was tight but manageable. After about 10 feet of darkness, Anna emerged into a space that took her breath away. It was a small cave, but unlike any she'd ever seen. The ceiling was open in places, allowing shafts of sunlight to pierce the darkness. The walls were covered with ancient paintings, human figures, animals, and countless scorpions rendered in red and black pigments that had somehow survived the centuries. In the center of the cave stood a stone pedestal, clearly shaped by human hands. Atop it rested a clay pot sealed with wax, and beside it a modern metal container, waterproof and airtight, the kind her grandfather used to store important documents. The scorpion climbed down from Anna's hand and moved to the pedestal, circling the items as if presenting them to her. This is incredible, Anna whispered, her voice echoing slightly in the cave. How long has this been here? She approached the pedestal slowly, taking in the cave paintings as she moved. They told a story, figures communicating with scorpions, receiving knowledge, gaining abilities beyond the ordinary. One panel showed a woman with a scorpion on her shoulder, her hands raised toward the sun as plants grew around her feet. Another depicted a man touching a scorpion and then finding water in the desert. The gift, Anna realized. It's been happening for generations. She carefully picked up the metal container, which had her name written on it in her grandfather's handwriting. Inside was another letter, along with a small wooden box and several photographs. My dear Anna, the letter began, if you found this place, then you've already begun to experience the awakening. The connection with the shadow opens abilities that have been in our bloodline since before the Spanish came to these lands. Our ancestors learned from the shadows, how to find water, how to predict storms, how to heal with desert plants. In time, you will discover your own gifts. Anna looked at the photographs, old black and white images of people she didn't recognize, each with a black scorpion somewhere in the picture. Her ancestors, all with the same gift. The wooden box contained something preserved for generations, the letter continued. A symbol of the bond between our family and the shadows. It belongs to you now, as does the responsibility that comes with it. Anna opened the small wooden box. Inside was a pendant, a scorpion cast in dark metal suspended from a leather cord. It looked ancient, the details worn smooth by countless hands that had held it before hers. As she lifted it from the box, the scorpion on the pedestal moved excitedly, its claws raising and lowering in what seemed like recognition. It's beautiful, Anna said, slipping the cord over her head. The pendant felt warm against her skin as if it carried its own energy. The moment she put it on, something shifted in her awareness. The cave seemed to pulse with life and history. She could feel the presence of those who had come before her. Generations of her family who had shared this bond with the shadows. And she understood, with sudden clarity, why her grandfather had chosen this moment to reveal everything. The gift wasn't just about communicating with scorpions or finding hidden caves. It was about protecting something precious, a balance between humans and the desert that had existed for centuries. The black scorpion climbed back onto her hand, and in its touch, Anna sensed urgency. There was more to learn, more to understand, and very little time. The sun was starting to sink toward the horizon when Anna emerged from the cave. Her phone showed it was already past 4 in the afternoon. She'd spent hours reading the journal and exploring the hidden chamber. Her mother would be worried sick by now, but there was no way to call from this remote location. The black scorpion rode on her shoulder, occasionally touching her neck with its claws in what Anna now understood was a gesture of reassurance. The ancient pendant hung around her neck, seeming to pulse with a subtle warmth against her skin. We need to head back, she told the scorpion. But there's something else, isn't there? Something you're still trying to show me. In response, she felt a gentle nudge in her mind. Not words exactly, but a clear impression that there was one more place they needed to visit before returning. An image formed in her thoughts, a small mesa about a mile to the north, topped with a distinctive formation of rocks. That's where Grandpa was found, Anna realized. Near his truck at the base of that mesa. The scorpion's claws tapped lightly against her neck. Confirmation. Anna hesitated. The sun would set in about 2 hours. If she hurried, she could make it to the mesa and back to her car before dark. But it would be cutting it close. Okay, she decided. But we need to be quick. She began walking north, guided by the scorpion's subtle directions. With each passing hour, their communication seemed to grow clearer. Anna was beginning to understand that what she had first thought of as the scorpion showing her things was actually something deeper, a sharing of awareness. When connected to the Emperor's shadow, she could tap into its senses, its knowledge of the desert, its ancient memory that seemed to extend far beyond what should be possible for a simple arachnid. As they traveled, Anna reflected on everything she'd learned. Her grandfather's journal had hinted at something troubling, a threat to the delicate balance her family had helped maintain for generations. Santiago had written about outsiders who had discovered the existence of the Emperor's shadows and sought to capture them for their venom, which supposedly contained compounds unlike any found in other scorpion species. In his last entries, he'd mentioned suspicious activity near the ancient sites, and his determination to protect the scorpions at any cost. Is that what happened to him? Anna asked aloud. Was he trying to protect you when he died? The scorpion didn't respond directly, but she felt a wave of something like sorrow pass between them. The mesa came into view as they crested a small ridge. It rose from the desert floor like an island in a sea of sand, its red rock walls glowing in the late afternoon light. Anna could make out her grandfather's old blue pickup truck parked at its base, exactly where it had been left after his body was found. I don't understand, she said. Why hasn't anyone moved his truck? As they drew closer, Anna saw that the truck was parked in a small clearing surrounded by dense cholla cactus. Yellow police tape still fluttered from a nearby bush. This was officially a place where someone had died, even if the cause had been ruled natural. Anna approached cautiously, ducking under the police tape. The truck sat silently, covered in a fine layer of dust. Through the driver's side window, she could see her grandfather's old straw hat still sitting on the passenger seat, along with a canteen and a pair of binoculars. What am I looking for? She asked the scorpion. In response, she felt a mental nudge directing her attention to the ground near the driver's side door. Anna knelt down, examining the hard-packed earth. At first, she saw nothing unusual, just tire tracks, her grandfather's boot prints, and the marks left by the paramedics who had responded to the call from the hiker who found him. But as she looked more closely, she noticed something odd. There were other tracks partially obscured by the official footprints, narrower with a distinctive tread pattern, and they led not from the road but from the direction of the mesa. Someone else was here, Anna whispered, before the paramedics came. The scorpion moved down her arm to the ground, scuttling over to a spot near the truck's front tire. It began digging frantically in the sand, its powerful claws moving with surprising speed. Anna joined in, scooping away the loose soil with her hands. About 6 inches down, her fingers struck something solid, a small metal case buried in the dirt. She carefully extracted it, brushing away the clinging sand. It was a digital camera, expensive looking but weather-beaten with its lens cracked. This isn't Grandpa's, Anna said. He still used that old film camera from the 90s. The scorpion tapped its claws against the device, clearly agitated. Anna examined the camera more closely. The battery was dead, but when she opened the memory card slot, she found it still contained a card. Her hands trembled slightly as she pocketed it. This could be evidence that her grandfather's death wasn't as straightforward as everyone believed. Sudden noise made her freeze, the distant sound of an engine. She turned to see dust rising from a vehicle approaching along the same dirt road she had used earlier. Someone's coming, she whispered. The scorpion immediately climbed back up her arm to her shoulder, its tail raised defensively. Anna felt a sharp warning pulse through their connection. Danger. Without hesitation, she ducked behind the truck, then scrambled toward the base of the mesa, where scrubby vegetation offered some cover. The scorpion clung tightly to her shoulder as she moved, its body pressed close against her neck. From her hiding place, Anna watched as a white SUV with no markings pulled up next to her grandfather's truck. Two men got out, both wearing khaki, clothes that might have passed for park ranger uniforms at a distance but lacked any official insignia. They carried themselves with a vigilant alertness that set off alarm bells in Anna's mind. "Someone's been here," said the taller man, kneeling to examine the freshly disturbed dirt where Anna had uncovered the camera. "Recently." The second man scanned the surroundings, his hand resting on what looked like a holstered pistol beneath his jacket. "Spread out. Check the area." Anna's heart hammered in her chest. She was well hidden for the moment, but if they conducted a thorough search, they would find her. And somehow she knew with absolute certainty that these men meant her harm. The scorpion moved to her ear, its claws touching her skin with deliberate pressure. Instantly, Anna's awareness expanded in a way that stole her breath. She could sense the location of every living thing within 100 yards. The men, a rattlesnake sleeping beneath a nearby rock, lizards, insects, even the barely there presence of desert plants stretching their roots through the soil. More than that, she could feel the mesa itself, not just as a mass of rock, but as a living system. And within it, she sensed openings, passages, a way, inside. "There," she whispered, so softly that only the scorpion could possibly hear. "We can hide there." Moving with a newfound stealth, Anna crept along the base of the mesa, staying low and using every scrap of cover. The men were focused on the area around the truck, giving her precious moments to find what she was seeking, a narrow crack in the rock face, just wide enough for a person to squeeze through if they turned sideways. Without hesitation, she slipped into the opening, finding herself in a tight passage that led deeper into the mesa. The scorpion moved to her hand, guiding her forward as the last light from outside faded behind her. In the pitch darkness, Anna expected to feel afraid, but instead she experienced a strange calm. The scorpion's presence anchored her, and through their connection, she could see the passage ahead, not visually, but as a kind of awareness of space and dimension that transcended ordinary senses. The passage widened after about 20 feet, opening into a small chamber within the mesa. Faint light filtered in from tiny cracks in the ceiling, just enough for Anna's eyes to adjust and make out her surroundings. What she saw made her gasp. The walls were covered with the same kind of ancient paintings she'd seen in the previous cave, but far more extensive. And at the center of the chamber stood a stone altar, surrounded by what appeared to be dozens of Emperor's shadow scorpions, their black carapaces gleaming in the dim light. "Oh my God," Anna whispered. The scorpion on her hand raised its claws in greeting, and the others responded in kind, a silent communication that Anna could feel rippling through her awareness. This was a sanctuary, a sacred place where the scorpions had gathered for countless generations, and on the altar lay a body. Anna moved closer, her heart in her throat. The figure was covered with a blanket, but she already knew who it was. With trembling hands, she pulled back the covering to reveal her grandfather's face, his expression peaceful as if in sleep. "But they said he was taken to the hospital," she said, confusion and grief washing over her. "There was a funeral. I saw the casket." The scorpion touched her hand again, and understanding bloomed in Anna's mind. The body at the funeral had been empty, a deception necessary to protect the truth. Santiago had known he was being watched, hunted by people who wanted the secrets of the Emperor's shadows. His final act had been to fake his death, to draw attention away from this sacred place while ensuring that Anna would find her way here. Next to his body lay a sealed letter with her name on it. Anna opened it with shaking hands. "My dearest Anna," it read in her grandfather's handwriting. "If you are reading this, then you have truly awakened to your gift, and the Emperor's shadow has judged you worthy to carry on our family's sacred trust. I have lived a long life in service to the balance between worlds. Now that task falls to you. The men who hunt the shadows will not stop. They have discovered ancient legends about the venom's properties, that it can extend life, enhance perception, perhaps even allow communication across the veil between life and death. What they do not understand is that these gifts were never meant to be taken, only shared through mutual respect between our kind and the shadows. You must make a choice now. Walk away and return to your old life, or accept the mantle I have carried. If you choose the latter, place the pendant on the altar and wait for the dawn. The shadows will show you the way forward. Whatever you decide, know that I am proud of you, my Anna. Your spirit was always meant for extraordinary things. Anna clutched the letter to her chest, tears streaming down her face. Outside, she could hear the men calling to each other as they searched. Soon they might find the entrance to this hidden chamber. She looked at the scorpion on her hand, then at the dozens of others surrounding the altar, all watching her with an ancient intelligence far beyond what anyone in the outside world would believe possible. A decision lay before her, perhaps the most important one she would ever make. Anna stood in the dim chamber, her grandfather's final letter clutched in her trembling hands. Outside, the voices of the searching men grew louder. It wouldn't be long before they discovered the narrow entrance to this hidden sanctuary. "What do I do?" she whispered, looking at the scorpion on her palm. The creature moved toward the ancient pendant hanging around her neck, touching it with its claws. Anna felt a surge of images and impressions flow into her mind. Generations of her family standing in this very chamber, accepting the responsibility of guardianship, learning to use their gifts to protect both the scorpions and the delicate balance of the desert. She saw her grandmother, a woman she'd never met, communing with the Emperor's shadows. She saw her grandfather as a young man, receiving the pendant from elderly hands. She saw others before them, stretching back through time to people wearing the clothing of Spanish colonists, and before them, indigenous ancestors whose connection to this land ran deeper than written history. The flow of images stopped abruptly as a shout echoed from outside. "I found something. There's an opening in the rock face." Time had run out. Anna had to decide. She looked at her grandfather's peaceful face one last time, then removed the pendant from around her neck. With steady hands, she placed it on the stone altar. "I accept," she said simply. The effect was immediate and astonishing. Every emperor's shadow in the chamber moved at once, forming a perfect circle around the altar. The scorpion that had been her companion joined them, taking its place in the formation. Then as one, they raised their tails and began to tap a rhythmic pattern against the stone floor. The pendant on the altar began to glow with a soft blue light that gradually intensified. Anna felt the air in the chamber change, becoming charged, with energy that raised the hair on her arms. The rhythmic tapping of the scorpions grew faster, more urgent. "Someone's in there," a harsh voice called from the passage. "I see light." Anna heard footsteps approaching, but she remained focused on the altar. The blue glow had now enveloped the pendant completely and was spreading outward in rippling waves. When it reached the circle of scorpions, each one began to glow with the same ethereal light. "Stand back from whatever you're doing," commanded a voice from the entrance to the chamber. Anna turned to see the two men from the SUV standing there, both now holding pistols aimed in her direction. "Hands where we can see them." The taller man's eyes widened as he took in the scene. The glowing scorpions, the altar, the body of Santiago Rivera, whom they believed had been buried days ago. "It's happening," he said to his companion, lowering his weapon slightly. Just like the old texts said, the transfer of guardianship. Anna remained still, her hands at her sides. She felt strangely calm despite the guns pointed at her. "You've been watching my family, following my grandfather." The second man stepped forward. "Your grandfather interfered with our research for years. We need those scorpions. The compounds in their venom could revolutionize medicine, extend human life by decades. Think of the possibilities." "That's not for you to decide," Anna said quietly. "These creatures aren't just animals. They're guardians of something you don't understand." "Don't be ridiculous," scoffed the first man. They're unique, yes, but they're just scorpions, valuable ones. Step aside and let us collect some specimens. He moved toward the circle of glowing arachnids, but Anna raised her hand in warning. Don't, she said. The man ignored her, taking another step forward. Instantly, every scorpion in the circle turned toward him, their tails raised in perfect unison. The blue glow around them intensified, pulsing like a heartbeat. The choice has already been made, Anna said, feeling words coming to her that didn't seem entirely her own, ancient knowledge flowing through the connection. This place is protected. You need to leave. Or what? Challenged the second man, raising his pistol again. You're outnumbered and outgunned, girl. We've been tracking these specimens for years. Anna felt something shift inside her. A new awareness unfurling like a flower opening to the sun. The pendant on the altar pulsed in time with her heartbeat, and she could feel the life force of every creature in the chamber, in the mesa, in the desert beyond. More than that, she could feel how they were all connected, part of a vast, intricate web of energy and existence. I'm going to show you something, she said calmly. Something my grandfather tried to explain to your people before, but you wouldn't. Listen. She closed her eyes and extended her hands, palms up. The blue glow from the scorpions flowed toward her like water, enveloping her in shimmering light. When she opened her eyes again, they too shone with the same luminescence. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble. Small stones skittered across the floor as the vibration intensified. The men looked around in alarm, steadying themselves against the chamber walls. What are you doing? Demanded the taller man, his voice rising in pitch. Anna didn't answer directly. Instead, she said, The Emperor's shadows aren't just rare scorpions, they're the caretakers of the desert. They maintain the balance, the flow of water underground, the health of the soil, the harmony of all living things here. Their venom isn't a commodity to be harvested. It's part of something greater. As if in response to her words, the walls of the chamber began to glow with the same blue light, revealing countless more paintings hidden beneath layers of dust and time. Intricate maps of underground water systems, astronomical charts, and symbols of power and protection. For thousands of years, my family has worked with them as partners, not masters, Anna continued. We don't control them. We serve alongside them. The trembling increased, and small cracks appeared in the ceiling, sending trickles of sand down onto their heads. This place is coming down, shouted the second man, backing toward the exit. We need to get out. His companion hesitated, looking between Anna and the glowing scorpions with a mixture of fear and avarice. We're not leaving empty-handed, he growled, lunging toward the altar. The moment his fingers touched the stone, every scorpion in the chamber moved as one, scuttling with incredible speed to form a barrier between him and the pendant. They didn't attack, but the message was clear. The sacred objects were not to be taken. The blue light pulsed once more, blindingly bright, and the trembling of the earth peaked. Larger chunks of rock began falling from the ceiling. Last chance, Anna said, her voice echoing strangely in the chamber. Leave now and never return, or stay and become part of this place forever. The men exchanged glances, then turned and fled, scrambling through the narrow passage as the ancient chamber began to collapse around them. Anna remained standing by the altar, strangely unafraid as rocks fell all around her, yet somehow never struck her or the scorpions. When the dust settled, the passage to the outside was completely sealed by fallen rock. The chamber itself had transformed. Parts of the ceiling had collapsed, but instead of burying everything, the falling rocks had reconfigured the space, opening new passages deeper into the mesa while securing it against intrusion from the outside. Anna's companion scorpion climbed back onto her hand as the blue glow finally faded. The pendant on the altar had changed, its metal now embedded with a small piece of luminescent crystal that pulsed with a steady rhythm. With gentle reverence, Anna lifted the pendant and placed it around her neck once more. This time, it felt like coming home, a perfect resonance between her heartbeat and the energy of the crystal. What now? She asked softly. In answer, her awareness expanded again, showing her hidden chambers throughout the mesa, a vast network of spaces where, The Emperor's shadows had lived and worked for centuries. She saw underwater springs, rare desert plants growing in protected grottos, and most surprisingly, other people. A small community living in harmony with the desert and its guardians, continuing work that had begun before recorded history. She wasn't alone. There were others like her, not many, but enough. Other families with the gift, scattered across the desert regions of the world, all working to maintain the ancient balance. The Scorpion guided her to a new passage that had opened during the collapse, one that led deeper into the mesa. As they traveled, Anna felt a sense of profound rightness, of stepping into a role she had been born to fill. There would be much to learn, many challenges ahead, but she knew with certainty that this was her path. Before entering the new passage, Anna paused to look back at her grandfather's body. To her amazement, it was gone, and in its place lay a small pile of sand that glittered with the same blue luminescence she had seen in the Scorpions. Transformation, she whispered, understanding dawning. Her grandfather hadn't truly died. He had become something else, something beyond ordinary human existence. Perhaps one day that path would be hers as well. For now, though, she had work to do. The men who had fled would return with others. The secret of the Emperor's shadows would need to be protected more vigilantly than ever, and she had a gift to master, a legacy to honor, and a world between worlds to explore. Anna took one last look at the sealed entrance to the chamber, thinking of her mother, her university life, all the ordinary concerns that had filled her days. Before the funeral, she would find a way to bridge those worlds, to live in both but belong truly to this one. The black Scorpion climbed to her shoulder, settling into what already felt like its rightful place. Together they walked into the passage, leaving behind scattered rocks and fallen dust, moving toward the soft blue glow that beckoned from deeper within the ancient mesa. Outside, as night fell over the desert, the two men stumbled back to their vehicle, shaken and empty-handed. They argued briefly about whether to call for backup, but something about the look in the young woman's glowing eyes had unnerved them both more than they cared to admit. As they drove away, neither noticed the dozens of Emperor's shadow Scorpions, emerging from the sand around the mesa, moving with purpose toward the abandoned truck that had belonged to Santiago Rivera. By morning, the vehicle would be gone, seemingly swallowed by the desert itself, leaving no trace for curious investigators to find. And in Mesa Verde, a mother would receive a letter in her daughter's handwriting, explaining that Anna had decided to stay in the desert for a while, to learn more about her grandfather's work. The letter promised visits, phone calls when possible, a continued connection. What it couldn't explain, was how the ordinary young woman who had arrived for a funeral had discovered her extraordinary destiny, guided by a big black Scorpion that had shocked everyone with its appearance, but had changed Anna's life forever.